All right, really excited to do an alumni interview with one of Ranken's alumni of the what we used to call internet and web-based technology. Ronnie remembers that name, and now we just rebranded it application and web development, tick for tat, no difference. But yeah, really excited to talk to Ronnie because Ronnie, you graduated from Ranken quite a while ago, right? When did you graduate?
2007. Yeah, 2007.
2007. So going on, 18 years or 19, somewhere in there in the industry, yeah?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so
Yep.
what is your job title and, who do you work for currently?
My current job title is application architect, and I work for Lumeris. It's a tech division of Essence Healthcare.
Lumeris, application
Yep.
architect, and in the healthcare industry.
Yes.
So what kind of software is it like? I know Epic is the big software in the healthcare industry. Do you work with Epic or is it other custom software?
No. So Lumeris is focusing on value-based care. So they're not like one of the EHR providers, although they do currently have an EHR offering. I think they're trying to retire. But we work on integration with a lots of different clients. So like we do work with Cerner to integrate some of their data from Epic. We have some proprietary risk models that we use, and we want to provide that information to their EHRs and vice versa. So we're kind of all over the place when it comes to Medicare Advantage plans in particular.
Okay, so application architect. So can you explain a little bit about what an application architect does?
Sure. So it depends on the day, but most of the time, I would probably say my role now consists of about, also depending on the project, but somewhere between 60 to 80% of like architectural planning, team mentorship, team meetings, stuff like that, and between 20 and 40% coding. The project I'm on right now, I'm doing more coding than architecture, but it kind of fluctuates depending on the project.
Which leads to some follow-up questions. I mean, you say, you're spending time architecting. I mean, I know architects make blueprints, right? So you're making software blueprints, or
Kind
how
of.
would you care to elaborate?
Yeah, so we're an AWS shop, and we've been there for a long, long time. So it typically comes down the pipe of, let's say it's a greenfield application, right? We start with, hey, Ronnie, this is what we want to do. Here's the business requirements. Here's all this other fun, neat stuff that you need to know from the product or slash business. How do you make it the most efficient and the most cost-effective way?
Okay.
Using cloud services.
Oh.
If that counts for it. We do have a division of the company that works with on-prem software. That's typically full framework, full framework.net back in the day. But a lot of the stuff I do now is actually TypeScript, Node, lot of Lambdas and API gateways, and then
That was
front
actually
end
my
stuff.
next question. I want to start taking some notes here. So you said TypeScript, Node.
Yep. Yep. Our front end stack of choice at the moment is SvelteKit. So that's all TypeScript, but it's a JavaScript front end platform.
Yep.
Our back end of choice for most things is TypeScript. So Node, but we do have a couple teams who prefer plain JavaScript. We are reaching into the AI space, so there's also a lot of Python involved in some of that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Our curriculum obviously has changed tremendously in the last 20 years.
Sure.
But yeah, we do have a lot of JavaScript MERN stack currently,
Okay.
and we still teach .NET, and so .NET Core is the current class that we're going through. So yeah, sounds like there's some alignment there, and we I would say we're dabbling into TypeScript. We've introduced it. We haven't done a deep dive quite yet on the curriculum. So sounds like we're flirting with similar technologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
How long have you worked at Lumeris?
Uh, 7 years, I think. I've
Okay.
I've always been really bad at
Yeah,
remembering.
ballpark. So how many employers have
Yeah.
you had after Rankin?
Let's see. I want to say 4,
Okay.
maybe 5. There was a
Okay.
short stint before Lumeris. Yeah.
Nice. That's probably pretty typical. Um, stay with the company, learn, grow. You got a good, learning curve. Then you plateau, and you go to another company, and you learn and
Yep.
grow, and then you plateau.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so you said 4 or 5 jobs since graduation, roughly ballpark.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Cool. And have you worked on any fun software projects? Anything that like stands out in your time? You've been out there for a while. Anything that stands out really?
Probably the funnest project I've ever had was when I was working at Oakwood as a consultant. We were hired by I don't remember the name of the company now, but they did laser etching to some degree. So they wanted to save some money. They have this laser etcher printer thingy, and the only way that they could interact with it, either to design the job itself or to print, was by using this paid software. But the printers themselves exposed socket connections. So, and they had a full suite of documentation about how to control the printer using web sockets. So, um, I got to write what I didn't call it at the time, but I was talking to a colleague of mine afterwards. He was like, "Hey, you wrote a laser driver," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I kind of did." So yeah, I wrote it was .NET Core. This was a while ago, so I don't remember which version, but it was essentially a .NET Core API that took some information from a front end, very basic, plain JavaScript, HTML, CSS front end that I created, where they could upload a file. So they would still use the paid software to generate the job, but then they would use the software that we wrote from a more remote location because it was a website instead of being directly connected to the printer, to load the job, and then that would tell the printer through socket communication what to do with that job file.
Yeah, that is
So
pretty
that was
cool.
probably the neatest thing I've ever done. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Have you worked on software that's kind of like high use, high volume, like lots of transactions or lots of use?
Um, I've worked on a couple different things. Mostly, I've come into software where that was the case, right? I worked at Worldwide for a little bit, and I worked on it was the internal purchase order system or something like that. I don't, been a long time since I've
Yeah,
been there.
it's all good. It's all good.
Um, Yeah, and then at Lumeris, I've got some applications, mostly front end slash API stack, where I would say they're. I guess it depends on what you define as high volume. I wouldn't
Sure.
say millions, right?
Right.
But throughout a typical week, probably hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
Yeah, high use. Very cool. Let
Yeah.
me pause for just a quick second. Okay, kind of skipping around on my questions a little bit just to go with the flow. What's a day in your 9 to 5 working in as a or as an application architect? Like, what's it look like for you? What time you clocking in? Yeah.
So somewhere it depends on the day. I take my kids to school in the morning. So somewhere between 8:30 and 9 is typically when I get to clock in.
Okay, and work from
Uh,
home, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah. We've actually Lumeris has actually been 100% remote since before COVID, so we've been here for a long time. Um, yeah, so 9 o'clock, we have stand up at 9:45, I think. We're on a pretty big team at the moment, so it's like a 45-minute stand up, give or take. We also take the first 15 minutes of stand up to just kind of uh, you know, uh, water hole kind of talks, right? Instead of just work focus. So we try to promote that culture. Um, and then after that, kind of like I said, it depends on the project. The project I'm currently on, it's work on the card that I have in my Kanban board. Um, look at PRs and Azure DevOps. Lots of other conversations I have with people throughout the day, with people asking me questions, or hey Ronnie, can you help me out with this? Can you help me out with that?
So, for someone who's like a new to this industry, right? They don't know what Kanban boards are. They don't know what sprints are or stand-ups. Can you kind of break it down just a little bit there? Like, what's a stand-up and what's some of this terminology?
Sure. So stand-ups, Kanban, all that stuff comes from like the Agile Manifesto or what's the other word?
Yeah,
There's a
agile
couple
development.
different,
Yeah, agile
yeah,
development.
there's a couple different variations of it, right? We've been all over it at Lumeris, but the team I'm on right now, we're using a Kanban board, which essentially is, if you think of a Trello board where you just have, a couple columns of like to do and progress and done, and there's no,
A fancy to-do list.
essentially, yeah. So Kanban is different from sprints, which we did a couple weeks ago, where you have typically a 2 week sprint to get something done. Provide some business functionality, and then deliver that at the end of the 2 weeks.
Yep.
We shifted to Kanban recently, so it's just as you finish something, you wrap it up, you orchestrate production deployments. You do whatever you need to do to get that done, which in this case is, create a change control because we are in the Medicare industry, so we have some audit and compliance stuff that we need to do, SOC compliance and stuff like that. So it gets a little bit more complicated than something you do at home, but it's pretty similar at the end.
Got it. So let me, make sure I understand. So, take your kids to school in the morning, working from home.
Yep.
Start with a stand-up meeting with your team, discuss what needs to be done for the day, the week, that kind of thing, and then
Yep.
you're checking boxes off of a fancy to-do list called a Kanban board.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And then answering questions when people ask me questions.
Yeah, and then you got meetings and emails, and you're writing code, and sounds like as an architect you're spending more time in meetings and that, like, more on the planning side, and a little bit less time nowadays writing code than maybe in your past. But you're still, you said 20 to 40% writing code.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you're no stranger to the code.
Oh no, I still love the code.
Nice. So what worked well for you? You went to Ranken.
Hmm.
How did you find this career success? I mean, you've been out there for 20 years. I think anyone listening to this would aspire to be in your shoes.
Sure.
What did you do? How did you do it?
So that's a complicated question.
Yeah.
Times have changed quite a bit over the past 20 years, right? If I were to give advice on how to get started today on something that is definitely going to be a career, at least, in the 5 to 10 year time frame, I would say look at AI. AI is the hot topic everywhere. Even if it's something as simple as like a GPT wrapper, which is something we've done at Lumeris, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But for me, Rankin did help me find my first job, and then I went from there to I don't think I used Rankin after that,
That's normal,
but
right? I mean, once you start getting
yeah,
a year or two under your belt, typically students don't really come back for like job placement.
yeah. I have poked around at the site, which I don't remember the name of that. I haven't been there in so long.
Yeah.
That Rankin had a while ago for job postings. This was probably 10 years ago or so, just to see what was out there. But you know, so yeah, Rankin helped me find my first job. Kind of snowballed into there. Found the field or the area of engineering that I was interested in. The first job I had was more desktop, and I think it was .NET 2 back in 2007-ish days.
Yeah, we're on
Um,
.NET 9 now, so
yeah, .NET 2 back then, some VB, some VB.NET, like all over the place. My next job, I'm more focused on web front end technologies, more web forms, which I've grown to despise, and I'm sure most people have over the years. But it helped me focus, right? And then I would say probably the most influential occupation or career that I've had was as a consultant. Um, I happened to be working for a really great uh, business-minded consultant, um, and I had a ton of fun. I learned a lot of things. I also like variety in my life, right? I get boring doing the same things over and over again, which is why I like being an architect. I get to, even though I'm not coding as much as I probably want to, I get to, poke my fingers in a lot of different pies, and it's a lot of fun. So,
yeah, good
yeah.
good good advice. I mean, it's an interesting background, and for new students, you kind of touched on some advice on don't be afraid of AI, essentially.
Yeah.
And
Embrace it while you can.
Embrace it while you can. Now,
Yep.
you listen to a lot of smart people predict the end of our industry.
Yeah, yeah.
But no one knows the future, and so there's also a lot of smart people who don't predict the end of our future and of our industry, and that this will continue to be a thriving field for many years to come. What's your take?
Um, the pessimist in me says eventually, yes, it will be a problem. Um, I think we're really, really far away from that based on what I've seen. I will admit that GitHub Copilot, with the various different models that they have available to us, like I think I've been using 4.0 recently, they're really good in some cases. For example, yesterday I was lazy, and I didn't want to write a script to upload a JSON file to a DynamoDB database, so I asked GitHub Copilot to do it for me. The first one wasn't great. I asked it again. The second one was a little better, right? And then I asked it again, and it was close enough that I could modify it to do what I needed. But it did not work out of the box.
No. Well,
So,
and there's definitely an AI hype train, and
oh yeah,
people overhype what it's actually capable of. And so what I just heard you say is that you use it as a tool in your toolkit, and it
yep.
can help you maybe write software more efficiently, but it doesn't do the job itself. It's nowhere replacing us in its current state.
I would agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
I use it for some boilerplate. It's really good at that, right?
Yeah.
If you just want to spin up a website real quick, it'll give you a good, nice, decent boilerplate that you can then modify to do what you actually want it to do. Yep.
What other tips might you have besides, being familiar with AI to kind of get your foot in the door for these entry-level developers?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Um, let's
Let me
see.
let me even ask you this: have you interviewed developers before? I mean, you've played a role on that side of the hiring desk.
I have, yeah. It's been a while since we've done it, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, the world has changed. A lot of people are on hiring freezes, but yeah, I've been there before.
Yeah. Okay. So in other words, your answer here is from experience
Yeah,
because you've played employer before. Yeah.
yep. Um, I would say for the interview process itself, don't be afraid to admit what you don't know. If you don't know the answer to the question, don't try to fake it. Admit it. Say, I honestly don't know. I'm not familiar with that, but that is very interesting. I want to go back and I want to figure out what that is because I don't know, right? And that's actually turned into a lot of interesting conversations for me, on both sides, where I've been asked a question about something. I say I'm not familiar with that, and then we had a conversation during the interview about what that thing was, right? So it's it depends on the company, unfortunately. Like if you want to go, towards one of the Microsofts or whatever, you're going to have a great deal of comp sci knowledge. They're all about data structures and algorithms and whatnot. Some of these other shops, not so much. I will say Lumeris is probably the best interview experience I've had, and it's because it wasn't focused so much on the specifics of the methodologies or whatever. It was just a conversation between me and another person who understood tech. What kind of stuff have I done? I talked about my laser driver printer, right? Like all that stuff. So if I had to boil it down, I'd say for the interview process itself, just be yourself, right? If you have something you're interested in, GitHub profiles never hurt. And it depends on where you go. That might be a breaker if you don't have one. I don't really have an active one because I've been in the field for 20 years, and a lot of stuff I do is proprietary, right? So
Yeah.
I can't really do a lot of that.
I've heard the opinion that like how many commits have you had in the last 100 last year, let's check out your repos and see how active in writing code you are.
Yeah, I don't personally like that as a metric, right?
Sure.
There's a lot of stuff that comes into play in your life, right? Either you don't have a public interest, or
Sure.
maybe you have an interest that you don't want to be public because you want to keep it proprietary. Maybe you have some political or technological reason to not use GitHub or GitLab or whatever else, right? Like there's a billion things.
Yeah. No, I
And in my
completely agree.
opinion,
I'm just saying I've heard it before. Yeah.
oh yeah, for sure. I've also heard that, yeah. So as far as, kind of careers, personally, I would say figure out what you want to do in the field, right? There's a lot of different aspects. There's actually a website out there that I'll find and I'll send it along to Mr. Goodmanstead here, and he can send it along to you guys. but it talks about all the different aspects of what it takes to be a software engineer. There's obviously front end, back end, databases, cloud, infrastructure. There's a billion aspects. Do you want to do it all? Okay. Be prepared to learn a lot, and it's constantly changing. But so for me personally, I'm not a front end guy. Like, I don't enjoy the process of making things pretty. I don't enjoy making websites. I enjoy, the components behind the scenes that make the websites work, but I do not like the stylistic approach of creating a website. So I know that I'm more of a back end and database guy. That's just that's how I like it, right?
Yeah.
I'm also into DevOps and infrastructure. I like all four of those, but I don't like front end. So try to figure out what you want to focus on and get good there.
Yeah, that's really good tips. Thank you. I think just from a high level, I think we hit all the questions. I can open it up to any current students, if they have questions. They were kind of saying some of the audio was a little too low, so I turned you up. So hopefully they can hear me. I don't know if they have any questions. I'll open it up on Discord if anyone may have anything, or if they can even hear. If not, it was all recorded, and I'll throw it out for them to hear from the recording.
Once I get into the Discord, feel free to answer or ask any question, personally, privately, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, very cool. No, and I just wanted to, keep it kind of brief and high level. I thought you did a great job. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your, busy day to talk to our current students. Again, I think just in Discord, there's probably 30 or so students watching you. So, congratulations on your success in the industry, and thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Right, have fun, guys. It's a hell of a ride.
I appreciate that. Take care.
Yep. See ya.